And CVA wants to be the type of organization that is the manifestation of that feeling, of that sentiment. If you're looking for something to enlist in, again, a movement to be a part of, an organization that's going to fight aggressively and professionally about issues that affect veterans in all America, then we believe CVA is a pretty good place to do it. And we're going to work with other organizations like the American Legion and VFW and others in any way that we can and on any issue that we can, because we're all in the same fight. And that brings me to a couple things about our name, Concerned Veterans for America. We're a veterans organization, but we're not just a veterans organization. We're a veterans and military families organization, decidedly, because no veteran serves by themselves. Everyone is supported by a family and others, and friends and community that supports them. And we certainly acknowledge that service as well, and we want those folks, need those folks enlisted. There's 20 million veterans in America today, but if you multiply that by families, whether that's brothers and sisters or mothers, fathers, it's about 50 million. That's a lot of people. That's a huge chunk of the population, and even a small percentage of that is mobilized. You've got a grassroots force that can really have an impact, and that's what we're trying to do in building this organization across the country. So it's concerned veterans, but it's very inclusive in that sense, and then it's for America. We're not just concerned veterans for veterans. We do a lot of work on veterans issues. As Kirk said, we've been very aggressive on the VA backlog. That's something we're going to stay on, and forcefully. And we'll talk a little bit more about what we've done. And there's some, right now on the tape in the back, there's a picture of us in front of the White House with a bullhorn, delivering our petition of 27,000 signatures to the White House. And we're going to keep doing that. We're going to keep going on TV and writing op-eds and making phone calls and all the things you got to do. But even just as significant for us is the For America piece. We didn't serve or sign up, put on a uniform to defend just veterans, to defend our ability to join the VFW and the Legion, or to get what we get. We did it to preserve the promise of freedom for everybody. And I think veterans need to have that perspective that's very helpful in a wide understanding of how you engage on threats. And one of the threats right now that we see looming in front of us, that we all sense, it's clear and present danger, is our $17 trillion in national debt. Our spending addiction that Washington cannot seem to solve, and literally is a national security threat. Admiral Mullen said it in 2011, chairman of the Joint Chiefs. He called our debt the single largest national security threat we face. And we agree as an organization. And if we don't lock arms to hold politicians accountable for responsible policies addressing our spending addiction, then we're going to see 18, 19, 20 trillion soon enough as we just spend away into oblivion. And who do we hoist it on the backs of? The next generation. That right the day they're born, they owe $54,000 with no plan to pay for it. And no plan to change the trajectory of the way our country spends money. And because of that debt, we see really irresponsible policies like sequestration, which has hit Virginia particularly hard. So I talked about the VA spending. DOD and Pentagon reform is a central issue for us, ensuring that we cut the fat at the Pentagon so we can keep the muscle and the pointy end of the spear, keep the biggest, baddest, strongest military the world has ever seen. But if you don't have your fiscal house in order, then you can't underwrite. Our economic strength underwrites our ability to maintain the most powerful military in the world. And when you chop the way sequestration does, you start to undercut the foundations of what makes that military great. And that chop is a reflection of the fact that Washington can't get out of its own way and figure out how to solve problems. So they just pass the buck down the road, pass a really ridiculous law like sequestration, and it hits everything across the board. So veterans need to be a part of that conversation, because anyone who served knows there's fat to be cut at the Pentagon. We've all seen it. Let's cut the fat so we can spare the military and what it provides us. What the 64,000 Americans right now tonight in Afghanistan, still serving, sacrificing, giving their lives, so that we can support a military that's able to project power and defend the freedom we cherish here tonight. And we're certainly cognizant, I know along the tour, that while we enjoy going around talking to people, it's purchased at a price. And that's what we want to preserve, and that's what we want to reinforce, and that's why we're talking about honor service. The first thing we want to do in this tour is honor the service of those who have given the ultimate sacrifice and those who continue to serve. Defending freedom, what does it mean? We talked about some of those, but the biggest part of this tour is the last part of that tagline, which is take action. Because you can sit here, you're going to hear some great speakers, like the folks this morning heard some great speakers, talking about their experiences and why they continue to serve. But if you go home and just say, hey, that's great, you know, that sounds good. I feel it in my gut too, man. I really agree with what they have to say. And you do nothing, well then we continue to contribute to the problem. Complacent, allowing other people who are either complacent and don't care, not informed, willing to be apathetic, or have a very different vision of this nation, who would like to fundamentally transform it, change it from the America that we know and love and cherish. So our charge to you is, if you believe what we believe, if you feel in your heart the way we do about this nation, enlist, sign up, join us to take action. And it's the dirty, difficult work of organizing. It's complicated, it's difficult, it's hard. That's why very few people do it, because it is difficult to ask people to make phone calls and knock on doors and register other veterans to vote. I was walking in neighborhoods today in Manssas, walking around, talking to veterans' households, identifying if veterans live there, what some of their preferences are, where they're from, because there is no task organization for veterans in this country. We don't know where they all are. And so until you know and identify vets, it's difficult to mobilize them. So the difficult work of organizing is done by volunteers, and it's got to be done across the country. And we're doing that. In addition to, hey, I don't want to knock doors, well then write letters to the editor, op-eds, host an event, let other people know about the organization. So there are many ways you can get involved, and we want to train you in that mission. In the military, when you went in, you got training. You weren't trained for everything you were asked to do, but you were trained for your core functions. And what we're going to do is, through taking action, is train you to be a more effective advocate. That's what our action center is about in the back. That's why we hope you'll check it out to sign up for a training here in Manssas in a couple of weeks, where we will partner with an organization called the Grassroots Educational Institute. Kelly, raise your hand in the back. She's from that organization, and they do a fantastic job of training advocates, folks who want to get involved. I'm just an infantryman. I can't train you. I'm not a good. I don't do their trainings all that well. But she and their organization know how to do it professionally. They know how to ensure that you're persuasive in the way you're presenting your arguments, that the time you're using is being used wisely, and that you understand what you're contributing to, why your actions are significant. It isn't just sit down, make phone calls, do push-ups. It's not that. It's here's what you're doing and why you're doing it and what it contributes to as part of a larger and broader movement to fight for the freedom here at home. So I appreciate the fact that you're here sharing this evening with us. It's an honor to be here with you. We are always humbled when folks come out and spend the evening with us. But I know you will not be disappointed by the slate of speakers we have here tonight who've come out to share, and we're hoping through hearing them and learning about Concerned Veterans for America, you'll join us to take action. Tell your friends and family about it. That's how organizations are built. They're not built overnight. They're built through trust and relationships and saying, hey, I know this group. I know what they're doing. I know in their heart they're fighting for the right reasons, and I want to lock arms with them. So thank you very much for being here. And I want to introduce our first speaker, which is Sean Parnell. Sean in the room? Oh, there. Sean, we love having Sean on the tour. He's a fantastic guy. A lot of times you meet folks that write New York Times best-selling books or led troops in combat, and some of them are good guys and some of them are not. Well, Sean's certainly one of the good guys, and he's been a pleasure to be with on the tour. He served in Afghanistan. He was an Army Ranger, Purple Heart, served in Afghanistan with his platoon for 485 days in the mountains of Afghanistan. Was wounded in an attack by the Taliban. It's a compelling story. He wrote a book about it that was a New York Times bestseller, Outlaw Platoon. I recommend checking it out. And his platoon was the single most decorated platoon in the history of the war in Afghanistan thus far. 85% casualty rate in Outlaw Platoon. But when you hear about who he is and the men he served with, it's a powerful story. He's since come back to be an advocate for them and does a great job. Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Parnell.